Every year, millions of Americans stand exactly where you've stood. They pose for photos in front of the same landmarks. They hear the same rehearsed facts from the same tour guides. The founding dates, the architectural achievements, the great men who walked these halls. But there are other stories. Stories the National Park Service doesn't print in pamphlets. Stories that security guards whisper to each other at shift change. Stories that have been reported and quietly buried for over 150 years. Tonight, we go inside those stories. 5 of America's most famous landmarks, and the things that refuse to leave them. 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, the White House, home to every American president since John Adams. And according to the accounts of world leaders, sitting presidents, first ladies, and longtime staff, it is the most haunted house in the United States. It begins with a knock at the door. It was during World War II. Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands had been given the Lincoln bedroom. In the dead of night, there was a knock at her door. She rose, crossed the room, and opened it. Standing in the hallway, in his tall black stovepipe hat and black overcoat, was Abraham Lincoln. The Queen promptly fainted. When she came to, Lincoln was gone. She told the story for the rest of her life. She was not the first. Eleanor Roosevelt's personal secretary passed the Lincoln bedroom and paused. There, seated on the edge of the bed, was a tall, thin figure pulling on a pair of boots. She recognized him immediately. She ran screaming back down the hallway. Winston Churchill refused to sleep in the Lincoln bedroom at all. On one visit, Churchill stepped from the bath to find Lincoln there, leaning against the fireplace mantel, looking directly at him. Churchill reportedly never mentioned it again without a dark laugh. President Harry Truman wasn't laughing. He wrote to his wife in 1946, "I sit in this old house listening to the ghosts walk up and down the hallway. Damned place is haunted, sure as shootin'. At 4 o'clock, I was awakened by 3 distinct knocks on my bedroom door. No one was there." And then there is the child. Willie Lincoln was 11 years old when he died of typhoid fever inside the White House in 1862. The child never left. Staff members during the Grant administration began reporting a boy wandering the upstairs hallways. 14 or 15 years old, unkempt hair, blue eyes, appearing and then simply not being there. A domestic worker during the Taft administration described him clearly. President Taft forbade his staff from mentioning it to the press. And then there's Ronald Reagan's dog, Rex. He would walk with the president, but at the door to the Lincoln bedroom, he would plant himself, raise his hackles, and bark. He would not enter the room. Not ever. San Antonio, Texas. The Alamo. On March 6, 1836, the battle lasted 90 minutes. When it was over, every Texian defender, between 182 and 257 men, was dead. Their bodies were stacked like timber and burned in the plaza. The ground you walk on when you visit the Alamo is soaked in the ash of those men. Days after the battle, General Santa Anna ordered the mission destroyed. He dispatched Colonel Sanchez with a detail of soldiers to level the Alamo. They came back without doing it. Something had emerged from the chapel doorway. Colonel Sanchez reported that as his men approached the church, 6 figures emerged from the doorway. Dressed as monks, but wrong somehow. Glowing, their hands holding flames. The soldiers called them Diablos, devils. General Andrade went himself the next day. He watched a wall of flame erupt from the earth around the barracks. The smoke congealed. It rose. It took the shape of a massive man with balls of fire in each hand. Andrade ran and never returned. Not a single man would go back. The mission was never destroyed. The Alamo still stands today, but the ground remembers. In the late 1890s, San Antonio converted the Alamo into a police station and jail. Almost immediately, the prisoners began filing complaints of paranormal activity. Between 1894 and 1897, multiple articles reported that ghostly sentries had been seen pacing the roof at night. Officers on the night shift began quitting. A park ranger stepped into a corridor and stopped cold. A man was there, leaning against the wall in frontier buckskin clothing. The flashlight caught the torso. It was riddled with bullet holes. Mexican soldiers stepped out of the darkness, bayonets drawn. They thrust their blades through the buckskin figure, and then all four faded into the wall. Visitors still report a young blonde boy peering down from a high window with no ledge. He's looking for his father. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Independence Hall. This is the room where the Declaration of Independence was signed, where the Constitution was debated and ratified, where the fate of a nation was decided by men who knew they might hang for it. Some of them, it seems, never left. The most frequently encountered figure is Benjamin Franklin. Witnesses report a man in 18th century dress near the entrance, solid-looking, appearing to examine the building with proprietary interest. When someone approaches or speaks to him, he is simply no longer there. National Park Service rangers have documented incidents in their log books for decades. Doors locking themselves from the inside, furniture rearranged, and, most consistently, the sound of men arguing, not murmuring, arguing. Heated, intense, multiple voices, echoing from the assembly room where the founders debated the shape of the republic. The sound stops the moment a ranger steps through the door. In the 1980s, a ranger doing a routine after-hours sweep opened the door to the assembly room and stopped. The chairs around the long table were occupied. Men in colonial dress, seated in apparent discussion, and none of them looked up when he entered. He backed out and radioed for his colleague. By the time they entered together, the room was empty. Every door had been locked from the outside. San Francisco, California, the Golden Gate Bridge. Since it opened in 1937, more than 1,800 people have gone over the railing. Only 34 survived the fall. The haunting of this bridge is unlike any other on this list. There is no single ghost, no one figure whose story we can tell. There are 1,800 of them. The most persistent reports are of the figures in the fog. Pedestrians and cyclists describe seeing people standing at the railing, completely solid, dressed in clothing from another era. Something about their stillness is wrong. Their posture, the way they don't move when the wind crosses the bridge. When witnesses approach, the figure is gone, not walking away. Gone. On the night walkway, multiple accounts describe hearing a woman's voice clearly through the wind saying, "Help me." But perhaps the strangest accounts are the ones of intervention. People who have walked to the bridge in crisis report being stopped by a stranger, someone who spoke to them calmly, who said exactly the right thing. When they tried to find their rescuer to thank them, bridge authorities confirmed no one matching that description had been on the bridge that night. Whatever is on that bridge, it is still trying to save the ones it couldn't. And then there is the ship. In 1942, the USS Kennison reported a vessel moving alongside them through the fog. A two-masted clipper ship, the kind that hadn't sailed those waters in 80 years. The ship's radar showed nothing. The clipper was identified as the SS Tennessee, which sank on those exact rocks in 1853. The fog swallows the bridge completely. We end where we began. Washington, D.C. The Lincoln Memorial was dedicated in 1922. The statue of Lincoln is 19 feet tall. In the silence of the memorial at night, it is very easy to believe that something is still in there. Multiple rangers have described the same thing. A faintly glowing figure seated inside the memorial, not in the chair of the statue, but to the left of it. Present when they approached, gone by the time they climbed the steps. During the civil rights marches, groups staged overnight vigils and described hearing a man weeping inside the memorial, a low, grieving sound, at 3 and 4 in the morning. When anyone entered the building, the sound would cut off immediately. In the 1970s, a security guard making his standard overnight check entered the memorial. He noted the time, and then, as he turned to exit, he reported that the Lincoln statue had moved its hands, both of them, lowered slightly, palms open, as if in supplication. He filed a written report. He was transferred to a different assignment the following morning. And in all the years since, the detail of the hands has appeared in ranger accounts more than once. Different guards, different years, the same detail. These are not remote locations. These are the places on the backs of your currency, the places that define what this country tells itself it is. And inside every one of them, something stays behind. We don't know what it means. We just know that the tour guides don't mention it. I'm America's Haunted Atlas. The map isn't finished. Subscribe for more. Stay curious. Stay haunted.
Subscribe now.